We're gonna call the executive committee meeting to order. Is there a motion to adopt?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Talking on the agenda? So everybody knows we're on the second amended.
Yep.
All right, all's in favor?
Aye.
Carries. We have some corrected minutes, June 10th. Now,
I can.
Second.
question on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Has any conflicts? Items on the agenda, just let us know. When we get to it. Do you have any public comments? Any committee members? Any supervisors not seated as committee members? Want to speak on anything? Have any announcements?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll just announce the reappointment of Elaine Boucher to the Aging Advisory Committee, which is a committee on the ADRC. She's done it before, recommended by our director, and she's enthusiastic to do it.
We'll act on that at county board.
No, I don't think we need to act. Since this is just a committee of the ADRC, I think it's just a announcement to this committee.
So just an announcement, Mr. Chair, we don't.
Don't need to do anything.
Thank you.
No action.
All right, we're gonna have a presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding a preliminary draft. New Ag Business Advisory Committee.
Yeah, I would call it a discussion, and this is kind of a follow-up to what Mr. Bonaprise and I have talked about, as well as I'm sure to some of you. We think back 20 years ago, I wasn't here, maybe some of you were, but we probably had several people on the board of supervisors who were in the ag business, farmers or so on. Active farmers on our committee now, I think, is rather limited, and who knows what the future may hold. But given the importance of ag in our county, the proposal from Mr. Bonaprise is to create an advisory board, or call it a committee, or whatever you want to call it, that could provide insights, advice, recommendations, or opinions regarding agriculture and business related to agriculture. I think for this committee, what we wanted to discuss is what would their role be, what would their structure be, or what would be their, I guess, official standing, if there is one with the county, and what the selection process might be. In terms of their role, I'll just throw out some ideas, but again, to provide insights to the ag issue. So if an issue comes up and if we think, oh, this involves agriculture, it may be, we may not be getting all of it. We can call this committee to say, would you guys discuss this if you haven't already, provide us information. It would not have, in my opinion, and it won't have decision-making authority. That's your jobs, right? We're not delegating our authority to somebody else. We're just saying we need expertise in a certain area. You guys might want to be the group. The next challenge we have is what would be their standing, so to speak? Would they, in one sense, it sounds like a lobbying group. People who say, hey, we've been monitoring, watching this, we'll give you our opinion. The difference might be that we have a selection process, that it isn't just a lobbying group arguing for one side, but rather they would be lobbying for all agriculture partners, so to speak. So it could be business related, it could be big farm related, it could be organic related. animal related or crop related. So the key, I think, on this type of committee would be, how do we get a committee that would represent all of agriculture? In terms of a selection process, and you know, we all know people who would be a great member on this board. And our biases might be to select a certain type of farmer, when in reality, we may need, if we need a large farmer, like I said, a crop farmer, animal farmer, there are different types of agriculture out there. And so what would be the process? My initial thought, or I guess my leading thought right now is, could we do something like have each district in the county select a representative? That's just one option. That would give us 15 members. Or you could say each district, or combine, say, 3 of the 15 districts, kind of group them up and say that 3 districts, they select, those 3 people would select who they want. That would give us 5. But maybe another one that makes sense is divided it, because you don't want anything that's too large necessarily, but maybe you could say, take 3 districts, combine them, and they select 2. And they could be possibly 1 actual farmer and 1 in the business end of agriculture. Or you could say, whatever those 3 people want, maybe they choose 1 large farmer and 1 small farmer, or whatever. So there are questions here that I guess what I throw out to you is what do you want this committee to be, or what should it be, and what's its role going to be in a way that represents the whole county?
Question. If we had a committee in place at the time that we were hot and heavy in the pig farming, would that committee be directly involved in researching and things like that? Is that the purpose of this, Johnny, or what do you think?
Mr. Chair, can I address this a little bit? This really started, I think, between when Dana Fry, when we had the 15 committees, we went to central government, and we went down to 5 committees. And so it eliminated this agriculture committee that we had. And so we talked about this ag business ad hoc committee. We have several ad hoc committees, like on trails, different things. And they're there when we need them. They're pretty informative. So what they'd be involved with the fairs and different things, as time comes on. I went through our book, with all the towns, and I made several calls, and because to replace our supervisors, we usually get some ideas from either the towns or the municipality, because they're local and they know the people. So I went through that book and I made some calls. I looked at every township. These are some, so I just come up with 6 names. I'll give them to you. Here's the one I think will make some, kind of went around. We got Dan Ruck, as he's on the county board. He kind of chair that. He's from Balsam Lake. We got Neil Gustafson. He's a manager of Federated Co-op from Osceola. Businessman. Gwen Dado, she's lady from Amory, that's a dairy specialist, and farm owner. Warren Johnson from Osceola, he's a farm owner, and Jamie Wood from Clear Lake, he's active, and I think he's on the fair board. He is, and they have several businesses farming. Sarah Pyle from Brantsburg, she's a farm owner and dairy specialist. Those are some names that I went around, and you can get a lot of suggestions. I give them to you, and it's going to be open for more suggestions. So I think we can have that committee that will be there.
It still didn't answer my question of whether or not it would be
Yeah.
that would be an active, purpose of the committee itself. Would it be active? Is that one of the things that we would be, looking at them to provide the entire county board with more intense information?
I
Or
believe that's the intent of it.
it's intended for that type of a scenario or situation that develops? Okay, because,
Well, would we not need like a purpose or a mission statement or something?
We'd have to come up with.
Because now when the CAFO issue is over, like the trail one, we sunset that ad hoc committee. Now, does this committee, is it just keep going, or if we don't have anything going on, do we sunset it or what? You know, I mean, we need a purpose and a mission or something. I mean, the CAFO thing is getting pretty quiet right now, or way down, but
yeah,
what other ag related thing is coming up that we would need a committee for right now? I mean, what do you think?
You know,
I mean, what?
I think one thing that they definitely would do is they'd be looking at the fair and kind of look at the business of the fair. And, you know, the fair used to be run by actually the county agent and the home ec agent. And since that is gone, it's really been in a disarray. I think this committee would probably look at the fair and come up with some ideas that would help both of the entries.
I think that's gonna stir that.
Yeah, I don't know that we have the authority or the position to tell the fair how they should, you know.
Yeah, there's a fair board to
No,
run.
it would just be an advisory ideas.
So, and that's kind of why I've taken a step back here and said, rather than make it a subcommittee or even an ad hoc committee, but rather an advisory group. Because what will happen is when an issue comes up, and it's agriculture related, and if we're not all agriculture experts, do we have people we can go to get sound advice? And that's where, if we're going to do that, I think it makes sense. I like the idea, but we want this committee to be representative of the ag industry. Problem is, you got the ag industry is divided, right? You've got sections. So, you know, it's kind of like P-TAG, but yet with P-TAG, we selected people based on their position, their interests. And we could do that, but I think, you know, I think it'd be better to be a selection process from supervisors to say, this district, we have big farms here, we need a big farmer. Maybe another district says, we've got a lot of the small hobby farmers, we need them, you know. So I think it would probably, we'd have to be fair, represent all sides here. But I don't want to speak for Ms. Bonneprice. I'll let you, you know, you're better at explaining it, John.
Another thing I think ag business needs to look at is our groundwater. You know, we have districts. We have the Horse Creek District. We have the Lake Wapagasig District. These are all things that, you know, are farm and business related that they can have an agenda and look at. And
That's land and water does that. That's
well,
with all this stuff.
they do part of it, but they're looking for resources too.
Yeah.
And I did get an email a while back, Warren Johnson, who you know, Mr. Bonneprice, and you know, just to represent what he's thinking is, you know, I think from their standpoint, they look at the county board and some of the things they're dealing with, and they're saying, hey, do you need help? Can I come in and tell you some things about this type of farming? And I think that's a good gesture. On the other hand, I probably would get letters from people that would totally disagree with what everything Mr. Johnson said. So how do, you know, if we want this committee, how are we going to, you know, again, I would say it won't have decision-making authority. That's your job. But do we need a group of people to give us advice on agriculture issues?
there's a group of, you know, I think the rural community feels that since the ag committee is gone, you know, that they're totally limited, and in a way they are from Polk County government. And this is another voice, people can bring some topics up.
What ago was that, John, at that committee? Can't remember.
But until we went to the central government, we had 5-person ag committee. And on that 5-person ag committee, there was a 2-person advisory that would always come to the meetings, you know, like, guys from Maine Reserve.
What years was that?
It was until we went to central government, about 5, 6
Well,
years ago.
At least.
Go back to 2004 and I can't remember it.
I remember, obviously remember the committee. I mean,
Maybe we could look it up and see what they did or what they had done.
we always had the ag director that kind of ran the show as far as they
Was it through extension then?
yeah.
Was it more
would have been
extension?
Because,
Yeah.
That's the ag guy. So maybe it was confused with the extension a little bit. Did we have an ag through it? We had an ag.
Yeah, they were a 5-person, and we had 15 committees that we
Yeah.
went into 5.
Yeah, and I think, Tim, your committee has a lot of the agricultural responsibility now, and you have.
Now we have it.
Yeah.
But before we were.
Right, and so, yeah, Jeremy Wood, who was from what, yeah, how was he selected?
Justin
Park.
from,
They're like,
Clear Lake.
Yeah.
He's an FSA.
Yeah,
rep.
right.
But see, that used to be in the other department, you know, that was parks and buildings and we started combining. But I'm wondering if that was extension that had that ag committee that was kind of for the fair and everything and the 4-H and all that. Maybe that was.
well, we didn't, that's how I got on the county board. I was on that ag committee 10 years before.
I just can't remember a separate ag committee.
Line Quarry Committee. Or might have been attached to the Line Quarry Committee, the farmer representation on the Line Committee.
Okay.
Warren Johnson used to sit on that one.
Yeah, and you know what? That's maybe an example, contrast, when we had the lime quarry debate, I reached out to 7, 8 people in the farming business, you know, or lime business, and had them come in, and I sought their opinion. So that's kind of, I think, what this would be. It'd be a committee like that. Now, the difference is that was the lime quarry people that I called, 6 or 7 people that I knew were interested. What if it's going to be a dairy issue? Well, I probably wouldn't invite those same 6 farmers in. I'd probably go dairy farmers. So in that sense, either the committee's got to be broad, cover all interests that we could seek advice, you know, or the alternative might be your jobs. When we have an ag issue, is to seek out from your constituents, you know, experts in that area. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with having expertise in a specific area. But the question is, how do we do it in a fair way that is representative of our county?
It'd be good to have that, you know, list of different names and stuff like that to do whatever does come up. Because like you said, anything we do, the opposite side is gonna be night and day. You know, just like the CAFO issue and the other issues. There's always one that's gonna be completely opposite. Big farmer, the small farmer, the organic, not organic. We're all gonna do that.
there's a number of different things that that this committee, a committee like that would be influential. I mean, the lakes, the pollution of the lakes from runoff is one thing that would be in, I think would be,
I'll get
could be
back to
addressed
that.
with something like that. Because most all your lakes complain, all the lakes in my district complain about the runoff. From particularly, I got one, you can sit and watch, it's like a little river going into Lake Wapagasset out of the field, you know. And there was an attempt to try to do more cultivating properly and planting of other than row crops and things like that. Reduce the pollution aspect, but some of those things could be addressed and brought to the entire county board. Intelligently, I believe. So the diversity, what I'm trying to say is the diversity of the group, like you're addressing, is immense. Actually, you never know where it's going to come.
You know, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. What if we start with kind of what Mr. Bonaprice has done in reaching out to people and getting
Right.
a group of interested and involved agriculture related people? And can we create a database, so to speak, a list of those people? Recognize them as, you know, your leaders in your field. We value your opinion. You're always welcome to submit that opinion to us. And then when we have a particular issue that we think this is ag-related, we could send out a message to all of them and said, hey, we'd like your input on this. Would you like to come and meet? Or do you guys want to get together and talk? Or do you want to just write us your opinions and that type of thing?
Interested parties in the group, yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's something that we're looking at, you know, with like the watersheds and there's farmland preservation, land that could be put in. There's no spokesman at all for the agriculture people. And there's issues out there. And if you had these people together, this ad hoc committee, where they'd come up with the ideas and bring to us, that there's issues out there that nobody's addressing,
That we don't know of.
that we don't know of.
That's what you're saying.
And we can't
We don't
sit
know
here,
some of the issues.
we got a few ideas today, but
So the one where we're standing right now is this committee. What is our interest would be then, what you're saying is to come up with an agreement that we need, that there's a need for this type of committee, and let's present it to the county board. And hopefully we can develop such an entity that we're discussing now, but discuss it in a manner. But our point is, yeah, there's a need. Let's pursue it and move forward. How we move forward will have to be done at a later date by a larger, more intelligent group than us, or whatever happens. But I think if
But give them a purpose and a
if that,
mission or
if
something.
that, yeah, that's correct. Get a purpose and a mission and see what develops from there. But I guess what we've got to relate to the county board, or I think our position is to relate to the county board that we feel that there's a need. And hopefully that will direct the entire county board to move forward.
that's how you started the trail committee, Jay, and look what, how busy they are and all that's developed.
Well, extension should be able to help us. Because
Yeah.
with this ag guy that might be coming on, I think that's our next meeting that I have. The new ag guy is coming. So that might help us decide if we need it, you know, with this ag guy coming. Stuff, you know, to decide. Because we don't have an ag rep through extension yet, right now.
And they're coming,
They're coming at our next meeting in
Yeah.
2 weeks, so that would maybe help us answer some questions too, and help. He could help answer some of those.
What are we gonna do positively in reference to this?
Pardon?
What are we gonna do today positively in reference to moving this?
Maybe move it to the committee of the whole.
Well,
Would that be better?
move it to the committee of the whole to just open up a discussion like
Yeah.
this.
Okay,
And,
Probably at the August, not this
I
month.
make a motion that we move this to the committee as a whole.
you want to, I don't know if we can do that in July. I suppose we still could in July if you want, or do you want to wait till after
I
the?
would say wait till after the meeting.
I wait till August.
Okay.
After the
I second that motion, Joe.
Because then we'd have some
Here.
information.
Did you figure out the verbiage in the motion? The text?
Yeah, no.
Well, I didn't either, so I. I'm the one that made the motion. You want me-
To discuss a potential ag committee or a network of
Yeah, to move
agriculture
forward to
experts to provide
present
advice.
to the committee as a whole
And maybe put some
with
more time.
our,
Oh, yeah.
our positive.
Everything changes. We don't have
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it close enough?
a county agent. They used to call him the
Yeah,
county
county
agent.
agent, yeah. But he could run that committee then.
I've done that.
You know, if there's no more discussion. More discussion on it? Not all in favor?
Aye.
What do we have on resolution 920?
Yes. Resolution 920, if you all recall, March of 20, the board passed a resolution giving the chairperson and the county administrator increased flexibility to adjust policies and make decisions related to COVID. And instead of always waiting for the next board meeting to make a decision on certain things, we were able to move quickly to arrange our policies. You know, it may ranging from remote working to, how we conduct meetings and that type of thing. And at the end of that resolution, it says, be it further resolved that this resolution will remain in effect until the end of the public health emergency. And it's just a formality, but in essence, the public health emergency is ended as a result of, the governor's order is down, we're not wearing masks, and so on. So I'm using this meeting as an opportunity just to announce to you that resolution, giving us a little more flexibility, has ended. And if anybody feels like, oh my gosh, we're not out of the woods yet, I agree with you totally. We still have to keep our eye on this, and we don't know what's going to happen this fall or winter. But there's no reason we can't reenact a legislation like this at that point, if that's what you choose to do. But I thought anytime we give certain people a little more power or ability to do certain things, we should control it. That's all I. This doesn't take a vote. It's ended as stated in the resolution.
Officially, it's over.
But if you want to throw any more power my way, feel free.
See what good it does.
Will you announce that then at county board?
Yes, in my administrator's report.
All right, give us an update on the sports rec complex.
Yeah, first of all, you'll notice the change in name.
Yeah.
And I told somebody, I said, maybe next month we'll call it the Sports and Tiddlywinks Complex. And the reason is, we don't know exactly what this is going to be, and I don't want people to infer things that aren't there. But the whole idea is we have an opportunity here to see if this might be something that could spur economic growth, could help our young people avoid kids getting into drugs, enhance our economy. And what that's going to look like exactly, we don't know, but that's the point I'm getting to. The next step will be a market opportunity study. Now, I've talked about this briefly in the past, and I'll just say that I haven't been speeding through this at a rate that we might make a hasty decision, but I have talked now with a couple of different firms that do these studies, and I'm getting a good sense for what they can provide. They will come and I can request this be done. They can come and identify what the opportunities are in this county and region in terms of sports activity, events, conferences, those types of things. and can tell us what they think will work and what they think won't. It's just the first step. And the firm I spoke with last week has done hundreds of these around the country over the years. And they're pretty good at saying, you know, and they have a percentage. They say, we go through so many and 20% will say, not going to work. 20% will say, you are spot on. What you're thinking about would be fantastic. But the other 60% is you've got potential, but you got to focus in this area and this area. So that's what I'm going to do. Once I get satisfied with the actual group, it's a, you know, within my guidelines to put out, you know, to hire that company. But I do think it's something that I think will just get us off the ground to say, do we want to do this or not? And if we do it, what will it look like?
What you're saying is that we want a firm to advise us what to zero in on, because not all counties or areas, one hat fits all is out of the question. So we have to know what type of activities we should look forward to in the future to zero in on, and to form a committee or a group that would be to pursue that in that manner. The other point I would have is what is the approximate cost or
Right.
that type of.
And they can give us ballpark figure. But the second part, which would be if they go, yeah, there's a demand here for these sports, equestrian or whatever it is, but not these things. And the next step would be a more intense feasibility study. And that's when they really dig in, they get on the ground and do the surveys, they investigate what people want, what we're willing to pay for, that type of thing. And they can give, that's the next phase, but they will say, here's the kind of structure which might work best. Structure in terms of, do you have a advisory committee that runs it? Do you hire an outside firm? Here's how much it'll cost to operate. Here's your projected revenues. And then how much a building would cost depending on what you want. That's more intense, but I think the first step is very economical to study. First of all, say, hey, this is a good idea. It might work. Or it'll come back and say, nice try, find something else.
Well, I think if you could make it work, I mean, it would probably be a good idea. But what kind of a cost are we going to ask the county board to come up with a potential idea of what we may look forward to, or what we should pursue through a firm like that? What do they charge us?
Well, for the market opportunity study, it would probably be the $25,000 range. The feasibility study, it might be another $35,000 to $40,000. And then, but then, you know, really that's when you make the decision of a go, no go, and what the structure will look like. Is it going to be largely private? I mean, they'll be able to say, hey, you've got enough private investors that there'll be very little need for county funds, or it may be, you know, the opposite. They say, hey, you're going to have county funds, but here's the revenue that will generate to pay back.
Right.
So, and the thing I'm looking for are companies that have done this a lot. And like I said, the ones that I've talked to have done hundreds of these. They have the examples, and they give them. There's some here in Wisconsin, all around the country. So that's the update.
Are counties running most of these or getting most of these going?
Actually, they're more municipal and city ones that I've seen, and usually they're involved. But they create a call it a public-private partnership committee, or maybe there are people and they hire somebody to lead that committee. But then a lot of these companies, they also, if they come and study it, if they say it'll work, they will offer their management services. So they say, and they run these all around the country, and they say, we can do it, or you can hire your own, or whatever you want to do. And, you know, if the municipality or the county, usually they might put in certain funds each year to help pay for, to keep it going, operating funds, but then hope is it pays for itself or it makes money. And then you also get the added value of what is it doing for the community. And there are some that are totally private. You know, the one in South Dakota called the Pentagon, out in the middle of South Dakota, not near anything, but that's just a sports complex where they run things through there all year and it's totally owned by a guy.
Okay, anything else on that subject? How about our work plan?
Well, there's nothing in the work plan. But I think in August, for the executive committee, you know, if there are things like the ag committee or whatever, we could do that. But at this point, we're pretty open. I don't know if Chad has anything to add on that.
I went through the work plan like I do each month, and right now it looks up to date. Unless you guys want to add another standing item for the ag committee, I would say it's up to date.
Where's he at? In his office?
He's off this week.
Yeah, we had a family vacation. We're on the road today, so I got to point out what a good job our IT department has done deploying technology in the last year, because I'm sitting on an interstate in Kentucky and I can attend the meeting. So I do have to give a kudos out to Scott and his team. Pretty impressive what they've done.
Tim is the saint.
All right,
So that eliminates, we probably won't need a meeting because we wouldn't have it just for that. I don't think we'd have a meeting just to discuss that.
just whether we want to put it on our work plans, we're working on it. All right, how about subject matters for our next meeting?
Do we have any report on fair will be over with by then? Maybe something from result of that we might.
We have not made any advancement. Leah, should we give any update on the fair?
Today or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
today.
so the most recent was an email we received from the attorney, Mr. Newhouse, saying that he reviewed the county board meeting from last month, and in his view, it sounded like the county was agreeable to all of their demands and just needed to work through its county process, but he was demanding that process be completed by September, which anyway, that's what his email said. Our response was that, no, that's not generally the way, we're seeing the meeting differently. However, we did provide that letter that the county board requested indicating that any of their requests are going to proceed through the general budgeting process. We had a follow-up letting them know that that wouldn't end until November, but that we needed to work together with his client so that we can make sure that things are getting paid. My understanding is the roof for the admin building is,
It was starting today, being replaced.
so those things are moving.
Had an unusual request through the Public Protection Committee from Dan Carlson, who represents the Snowmobile Association. I don't know if he's president, but quite very active. And he's in charge of all the equipment that they have always been requested by the fair to utilize during the fair society. They haven't heard anything from them. So he reached out to the Public Protection Committee to ask the fair committee or whoever's in charge whether or not they're going to require any any assistance from their equipment. And they had a couple of tractors that they normally would donate time to during the fair or for the fair and the preparation of it, or whatever they used it for. I'm not familiar with that. But I thought that maybe somehow somebody ought to reach out to the fair people and ask them if they are going to require anything like that. There seems to be no communication from them at all this year. It's been something they've done on a regular basis. So, I don't know if anybody's heard anything.
Mr.
It came out in public protection, which really doesn't have foreign water.
Mr. Warrendall was there, who was our representative. I know he has been in communication with the fair.
Okay,
Now, I couldn't speak to what the status is of that
okay.
state, but I can tell you.
You heard
Mr.
anything?
Warrendall was there.
I've heard stuff.
Stop.
Just all the reporters sitting back here, I'll tell you after the meeting.
Oh, okay.
It's all over spilled coffee 2 years ago. Someone got cranked up. Someone spilled coffee, he didn't clean it up in the tractor.
Oh, well, they're willing to give the track.
I know they are.
Well,
It's the fair again.
coffee.
All right, we're actually on,
Heavy duty stuff, Jay.
Okay.
we're actually identifying subject matters.
So do we want to talk?
For the next
Next-
meeting.
Yeah, coffee spills
So
in
you want-
track, we put
I'd
coffee.
like to put that on the agenda.
That it has, if
for-
you spill your coffee while you're driving the tractor, you're supposed to clean it up. You don't piss anyone off.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'm sorry I brought it up. I thought we'd try to get the word out somewhere that the tractor's available.
And it's clean.
And it's clean.
It's clean.
What are we gonna do with presentation and discussions with the external agencies? Are we gonna do a joint meeting with federal government? Or
Yes, I think that's the plan. I think we put that on there, and I will say, at the time that I had Lisa put this together, I wasn't sure about what our status was with the Fair Society. I'm pretty sure they won't be here, and nor were they invited, I guess. It was, given the uncertainty of our relationship and their requests that we not communicate with them. So I put that on there mistakenly. But if they show up, they're welcome.
So they don't want to talk to us anymore.
That's been their
Position.
position.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's not a county thing that isn't reaching out to them. They've said, we don't want to talk to the county anymore.
It would reply to their.
And we did reply,
Sure.
and so Mr. Newhouse is going to follow up with his client
Sure.
and then respond so that we can keep moving forward, at least on the things that we're obligated to do for this year.
And to be clear, committee, in May, I sent letters to all the external agencies asking for their funding requests for 2022 and kind of laying out the work plan, funding them. Is the only one I did not hear back from, but I did send them an initial letter in May before we got the communication from their attorney.
So my question, Chair, is we have an MOU with the Fair Society, correct? Do we or do we not?
I mean, it exists, yes.
Okay, so we do have an MOU with the fair. And the MOU requirements are, is they're supposed to give us their financial stuff every year, right?
Correct.
So what's your legal opinion? If they're not gonna show up to our meetings and they have an attorney, they don't wanna talk and they don't wanna give us their financials, how do you look at a contract or an MOU that they're not doing their obligation?
Sure. Well, they're in breach of their obligations. They're claiming we're in breach of the obligations. But I don't want to get into the nuances of the legal arguments. It's not on the agenda today or anything.
No, it's just discussing external agencies' current MOUs.
Right.
So I'm just discussing a current MOU. I just want to make sure we all understand that if they have a current MOU, I want to discuss that. That's all I want to do.
Yeah. So again, in my opinion, they're in breach of their obligations under the MOU. They're claiming that we are in breach of the obligations. Both parties started renegotiating the terms of the MOU, over a year ago. And so whether that current MOU is something that binds either party at this point, is questionable.
It's questionable. So how do you answer the questionable? How do you resolve the questionable?
Well, for example, if in one of the emails from Mr. Newhouse in response to the county's letter response indicated that he did not want to get Attorney Rory O'Sullivan, who he said was their government litigation attorney, involved, which I think was in a way basically like a threat saying, I don't want to, but I might. So if they did and they tried to file some lawsuit, it would resolve whether or not anything in the MOU is currently enforceable on either party. But at this point, based upon what the county board decided, we did communicate that we are willing to maintain our obligations for this year in as much as what has already been placed in this year's budget to follow through with the roof and some of the other things, and providing the bleachers. So we are willing to fulfill what we believe would be our obligations in the current MOU for this year.
So your opinion is that we're currently following the MOU still on our
Yes.
side.
I don't believe we've ever breached the MOU.
We haven't breached the MOU in your opinion.
Right.
But you feel confident to say that by them not attending, by them not giving us their financials,
Their financials, their demand, they're not demands, but requests for new funding for next year.
they haven't done any of that.
No, and their letter from the attorney would be considered a notice of anticipatory breach. So in other words, they told us in that letter, we don't want to do this with you anymore. And so we're stopping,
Sure.
and here are our demands. So they've communicated with us that they intend to continue breaching the MOU.
So what's the executive committee's role on MOUs, or does it go right to general government? So what's our next steps as far as getting ready for budget season and not having that information? What are we going to do? Does executive have a role in this, or is it purely general government?
I think from the budgetary standpoint in developing it, it would go to general government. Executive really, I think, was tasked with the grandstand issue. So I really think it would be a general government and the administrator's recommended budget, whether there is anything in the budget for next year.
The MOU is under general government, so it really isn't our job to deal with it at executive any longer.
Well, as far as the budget and whether we're going to promise to continue to honor any obligations the county may have under the existing, that would be through
General
general government. But renegotiating the MOU, I think, has been brought to both, and
Sure.
it makes sense.
So really, the agenda item was to get exposure to both committees of the groups in which we have MOUs, so that they can come and present their case and then discuss their budget request.
Not today at general government.
Well, yeah, general government with the executive committees invited.
It listed under both.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a joint
Sure.
like we did the last.
Right. Remember that. I do have a couple of questions to ask them as a group. So when these individuals show up with these agencies, they're all going to stick around so we can talk as a group with them, right?
Was that the invite?
I don't know if
That was the
invite or
intent.
not, Chad, or if they just would come and present, answer questions, and then they might leave, but we could always ask them to stay. I don't know what the.
I would ask. For
Yeah,
them.
When I communicated with each external agency, I asked them to provide a presentation no longer than 10 minutes and then allow for up to 5 minutes for conversation with the committees.
And can they
Each.
stick around for the whole, till all are completed, you say? Is that what
Yeah.
you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, if they want to, it's just, I asked them each to allot 15 minutes of, to give 5 minutes for conversation after each presentation.
We'll ask.
I got a call last night from a former fair board member. He said he was on the fair board 17 years. And that I gotta read him a little bit for things that happened before that I didn't know anything about. He said the county didn't really participate as far as anything financial to speak of for 24 years, and that's why they're coming to this conclusion. He said that he sat in the office with the former administrator. Our topic was, where did this expended grandstand come from? He said that was Dana's idea, that they could build a 3,000 seat grandstand for $500,000. That was back at that time. Because there's talk about, well, the idea of hiring Cedar Corp and everything came from the fair. That wasn't true. He said that came from Dana and hiring firms to look at that. Yeah, a lot of comments.
And
There is things on both sides.
And my only comment, John, and to the chair and to the administrator, I think that's one of the biggest issues we have still, is to tell the public the truth. Because when you hear comments like that, someone to John, they truly believe that. Which I think you could pull up the paperwork and staff can show that that's completely false. But there's a narrative out there still that certain people want to keep saying. And I've sat in these meetings for the last 5 years, and I know almost all of it is not true. I've seen county staff, I've seen our county board put resolutions together. I've seen us put a resolution together to have that committee where we worked on that, worked on the MOU. We worked with them directly. I sat in the room and listened to them directly. I heard their requests directly. I heard what they wanted directly. I saw what our board funded directly. And there's these, that's where I don't know if it's getting out to the press or how do we get the information out where, and that's why I asked the question about the MOU today. Because I think we need to keep spelling out the facts so people don't keep making up their own stories. I just, yeah, the facts are important more than some guy's history of what he thought happened and what someone said and what 3 administrators ago said. And I know that's the problem being on a county board. That's the hardest thing I think on my job is listening to all the stories. And they're not, they're stories, they're not the facts.
We didn't go deep into this.
Yeah, we are
Well, a little bit, but we are on presentation and discussion.
on the MOU.
MOUs, and they're all listed here, so.
Yep. Thank you, Chair, for allowing the facts to come out again. Which little ones did, but
According to your opinion.
according to my opinion, that's the facts.
All right,
Go
let's,
Go back to number 11, that, what we want on our work plan. There is a page here with some other stuff, with the government security, customer service, policy reviews, obviously is on there. And then
you know,
on any of those future.
well, I kind of think we're dealing with all of them, just in a little different way. Government center security, we're dealing with under our remodel.
Yep.
Customer service under our remodel.
Okay.
Already talking about procedures and policy, reviewing MOUs and funding. Meth, we got a lot of good stuff going with that. Yeah, I think that's why we haven't put them on. Somebody's working on all of them. Unless you think,
No,
one of
that's
these
what I
is
wanted.
working on more.
No, they were there, so I just thought we should at least mention them.
All right, let's take turn, and if we're gonna do a joint meeting, executive and general, we'll start in 4 minutes.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? And adjourned at 9.
Like your spot.